Okay, let's bring in this idea number 2. Because I think we've gotten some good work out of that idea number 1. So now we're going to go back to bending. We did this in the solo, but let's talk about bending for those of you that are just kind of getting into this. If we play E minor pentatonic, that 10, that's an A note. That's the 4th of the scale. We're going to bend it up a whole step. That's what that full means. So notice we're bending up to a note at the 12th fret. That's a B. If you look at the chord diagrams and the minor pentatonic thing, that's the 5th. So we're going to start on a 4th, bend to a 5th. Now, when I bend, I use my pinky a lot, but on this situation, because of the lick, I'm going to bend with my 3rd finger. I'm bending to a note that is 2 steps up, again, in my pentatonic scale. So I'm starting on a note in the scale, bending to a note in the scale. And a good practice, another technique thing that's important to work on, is making sure your bend is in tune. Sometimes we get flat or we overbend. So part of playing lead guitar is you're listening to what's going on in the recording and making sure you're getting your bend in tune. But this is also like the athletic thing where you're developing muscle memory because the tension is easier up high than it is down low. So if you're bending down here, you're really going to have to crank on it because you have all this tension here, but you're still bending to a pitch that is a whole step higher. So let's practice this lick a little bit. We're going to bend. I'm getting it in tune. So bend, 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 come down, sneak your 1st finger in there, pull off to the 8, give it a little bend, and then bend again. Okay? Now notice all this comes right out of that E minor pentatonic scale. So okay, there's a root note. That would be a legit way to end the lick because it's over an E chord. I'm ending on an E. But I didn't want to write a bunch of licks that just ended on the E all the time. I wanted you to see some other options. So what's written is this. And then there's that vibrato at the top of the bend. That's pretty hard to do. So if all you can do is get the bend in tune right now, man, that's enough. That's a lot. If you are pretty comfortable with the bends, get the bend up there, and then slowly start applying some vibrato. Now notice my thumb, I'm gripping over the top. When I bend, depending on the lick, but that thumb, man, it's tough to bend if your thumb is like when we were worried about the chord stuff. But I kind of this part of my thumb with a knuckle, I'll just kind of bend it over. And notice too, I have a finger behind it, not in the same fret. I'm not jamming them both in the 10th fret and trying to bend. I'm bending the 10th fret, but I'm using the 2nd finger in the 9th fret, and I'm pushing in and up. If you let your fingers flatten, you'll never get that bend, and you'll make a bunch of noise when you come off of it. Get on the tip of your finger, push in and up, and I push the string of the 3rd string out of the way. I just push it with me. Eddie Van Halen had this crazy thing he did where he would bend and get under the string and let the string ride his fingernail up. I mean, I just can't be consistent with that. If you can pull it off, good for you, but I can't. It just slides around the fingernail. It's just too, I don't know. I just don't bend that way. So we're bending up with 2 fingers. Be mindful of this. You have to bend in tune, and you want to get in the habit of having support with that finger. If you try to do this with 1 finger, man, that's pretty brutal. So bend, come down, sneak your 1st finger in and pull off and do a slight bend. And then we're just going to bend again. If you can't get the bend on the minor 3rd, don't sweat it. But this pull-off thing, That's pretty important to start working on. Again, this is a technique thing that's better to work out in context and with a real lick, because this is a real world situation, instead of just doing lame picking exercises all the time, because you won't work on stuff like this. And when people, when they're learning how to improvise, I've worked with students that have been playing for years and they know all these pentatonic shapes. They know arpeggio shapes, but they just don't know what to do with them. They're like, man, I just feel like I'm playing the same stuff. I'm just playing through patterns and scales. And it's usually because they haven't learned licks. They haven't jammed along with recordings. They haven't learned solos, and they haven't paid attention to phrasing, timing, and these other techniques like bending and kind of massaging the lick to make it work in a recording. So we're going to do this. And if you can apply vibrato, cool. If not, just get the bend in tune. Okay, so. And we're going to do it within this context. All right, so we're going to go back to these lick, and then we're going to do this with some of those rhythm ideas too. Okay, here we go. One, two. You can just hit the bend and hang out. That works, right? Because we're bending to a note in the scale over the E chord. See, that sounds great. That's the intentional part. Let's go back to the lick. One, two. I can sit on this E, but I gotta go now. So you can see how when I'm playing this idea, it's pretty busy. So figuring out, hey, do I let this E ring? How much time does it take for me to get into this bend? If you're sitting on this E for 2 beats and you've got to get ready to get into this, don't worry about the front half of the lick. Just get set up for that. Get into that bend, okay? Now let's simplify the rhythm to this thing, the chord shapes. So example 2, and then we're going to use this idea 2 on top of it. Here we go. Now bring in idea 1. This time idea 2. Back to idea 1. So we're bending that G. We're going to do it again here. Back to idea 1. That is our G. We're going to do the same thing here, but an octave higher. Different part of the minor pentatonic scale. Right there. That 8, that's our G. So now we've also learned something important. Hey, if I learn these licks and I learn these different rhythm parts, I can start mixing it up. Exactly. So this is a really smart way to practice and to play. We could even mix up the rhythm parts. So we could do example 1 rhythm, idea 2 lick, example 2 rhythm, idea 1 lick. This is kind of the beauty of Hendrix, is he'll start weaving in and out of these different rhythm parts and the different parts of the neck, triads, pentatonic stuff. Now let's try idea 2 over example 3, where we're doing this thing. Now we're right there. So being able to see where you are in the scale and the progression, know how to get in and out of things, that's pretty important. So let's try idea 2, and then I might bring in idea 1 again as well, over rhythm example 3. See how I can hang out on this E note? It is the end of my rhythm idea. It's like the same root note as my E chord, okay? So I'm gonna hang it on this note again. There, go. Now let's try the other idea. Lick 1. I can still hang it on that E note. Here comes idea 2. Okay, let's bring in example 4 for the rhythm part, where we're playing these chords. Up here, these high triads. D, A. Now let's bring in idea 1. This time, idea 2. Idea 1. Idea 2. So you can see how fluid and musical this starts to get pretty quickly when you just learn a couple rhythm parts and a couple licks. We've only learned 2 licks so far, right? And we've got these 4 rhythm ideas. We're already starting to think like an improviser, like someone that's playing realistically within a track. So let's take a look at let's take a look at this idea 3 next. So idea 3, again, we're right in the middle of that pentatonic scale, but we're going to work on this hammer on idea. We're going to go. There's that same note we were just playing around with a bend, and we're going to come back to the root. So we're going to go. Look, That note, C chord. That note, E minor pentatonic, right? So it's all starting to tie together now. So this lick, again, we'll go, and we just let it breathe. And again, you get that chance to work on your cool Hendrix vibrato, because it is something you really... Mike Campbell talks about this. Like, he spent so much time just studying his favorite player's vibrato. So I'm bending, hammer, get it clean. I'm just bending with my second finger, and I'm just bending it up a quarter step. I'm not trying... You can get to that full major third if you want to, but I'm just getting kind of that bite on the note where it's not quite in tune. It's between the minor third and the major third. So okay, so let's try that in context. We're going to move between examples 1 through 4 for rhythm, and we're going to bounce in between these ideas. So I'm going to give you idea 3 a couple times in a row, and then we're just going to start going down the sheet. So it'll be idea 1, idea 2, idea 3. Okay, so we can start mixing it up. Here we go. Again. Now let's do example 2 for rhythm. Same lick. Again, same rhythm. Okay, now rhythm 3. Again, same rhythm. Same rhythm. Sit on an E. Next time around, we're going to do idea 1, idea 2, idea 3. 1, 2. Same rhythm. Idea 2. Idea 3. Okay, now example 4 for the rhythm. New lick. That idea 3. Again. Now we're going to do all 3 licks. Idea 1. Here's idea 2. Here comes idea 3. Now let's start mixing up our rhythms. Rhythm 1. Okay, so I'm going to play along And I'm just going to start mixing up rhythm parts and these 3 licks we've learned. And you're going to see how quickly this starts to sound like real music. Like this is the kind of way Hendrix or May or anybody else would play. You're going to vary your rhythm ideas. You're going to move around between different licks to mix it up. So you can do this however you want with the backing track. I'm just going to give you some examples of how to take the information that we've learned so far and how to apply it in a very real world context. So I'm going to hit play. I'm going to jam along. You'll be familiar with everything I'm playing. And then what you should do is turn on the recording and do the same thing. Just bounce around between rhythm parts and these lead ideas. Okay, here we go. Okay, that's a pretty good representation of how I think you should be practicing. If you were at the studio or taking lessons in person or online, that's the approach we would take, where I would play rhythm and you would have to work out these licks, and then you would have to play rhythm, and I would be playing licks, and then we'd just start mixing it up. So use the backing track to your advantage. Use the different tempos. On the last little bit there, we were doing it at the slower version because I think that's enough. If you want to push it and get into the recorded version, go for it. But we're going to move on now. We're going to get into some new rhythm ideas and some new minor pentatonic ideas. But now I think you have a concept, a sense of how things are going to unfold and how you should be practicing, because now it starts building on top of what we've done. So I'll see you in a second, and we'll learn some new rhythm ideas and then jump into licks just like we did before. All right, see you in a second.